The memory of that storm-swept evening remains vivid. When my husband's supervisor appeared at my door while my husband traveled 3 states away, I assumed he needed to deliver work documents. By the time he departed, something fundamental had transformed within me. What began as an uncomfortable, unplanned encounter in my dimly lit home evolved into an experience that challenged everything I understood about faithfulness, isolation, and rediscovering one's identity as a woman. If you're here right now, picture this scenario. Decades of marriage behind you. You've embodied countless roles: partner, parent, household manager. Then suddenly, unexpectedly, someone perceives you as though you're still the most captivating presence in any space. That's precisely what unfolded with Sebastian, my husband's superior. Nothing was calculated. I never imagined such a possibility. Yet that rainy night, with my husband absent, a single conversation, one meaningful glance, and an unexpectedly tender gesture altered my self-perception permanently. Before revealing what transpired during those hours, I'm curious about something. Share in the comments which location you're viewing from currently. Are you settled in Chicago with late-night tea? Perhaps you're in a quiet suburb in Georgia, or somewhere in California with dimmed lights ensuring privacy. Tell me your location, because tonight we're sharing this space together, and I'm about to confess something I've concealed from everyone else. My name is Taylor. I'm 49, married to Michael for nearly 25 years. When this occurred, his work travel had intensified considerably. Business conferences, urgent meetings, client emergencies that consistently landed on weekends or holidays. I used to joke that his frequent flyer account deserved its own bedroom, since he occupied airport lounges more than our couch. Our relationship wasn't always distant. Initially, we were inseparable, that couple holding hands while grocery shopping, staying awake until dawn discussing dreams and nonsense. But reality gradually accumulates between two people. Financial pressures, children's needs, aging parents, career demands. Imperceptibly, we transitioned from looking at each other to looking past each other. That particular week, our house echoed with emptiness. Our daughter had established her own apartment, and Michael had departed Monday morning for a 4-day business trip with his supervisor, Sebastian. I barely knew Sebastian. We'd encountered each other at corporate functions a handful of times. Tall, impeccably dressed, courteous. He possessed that measured demeanor that commanded attention whenever he entered a space. Always considerate toward me, always professional, yet remote. He was Michael's boss, not my acquaintance. At least, that's what I believed. The night everything changed. It was Wednesday, one of those oppressive evenings that feels weighted without clear reason. The sky hung gray and turbulent, thunder growling distantly like a forewarning. I remained in comfortable home clothes, soft leggings and an oversized cardigan. My hair was casually tied back, makeup removed hours earlier when sunset arrived. No purpose existed for maintaining appearances in an empty house. I had just warmed leftover pasta and poured red wine when my phone illuminated. Michael's text read, "Flight canceled, stranded overnight. We'll update later." I stared at those words longer than necessary. No missing you, no how's your evening? Just logistics, information, practical, impersonal. I sipped wine slowly, letting that familiar blend of disappointment and acceptance settle into my chest. I activated the television for ambient sound, some procedural drama I wasn't actively watching, and positioned myself at the dining table with my plate. Then, the doorbell chimed. The sound startled me. Darkness had already fallen, and unexpected visitors rarely appeared at this hour. I set down my fork, pulse quickening slightly, and approached the entrance, nervously smoothing my cardigan. When I opened the door, complete surprise struck me. Sebastian! I blinked repeatedly. He stood beneath the porch light, which cast a gentle glow across his shoulders. His dress shirt collar was slightly unbuttoned, his tie loosened. He appeared weary in an unfamiliar way, less polished, more vulnerable. "Hello, Taylor," he said, offering a small, apologetic smile. "I apologize for arriving unannounced. Is this inconvenient?" I shook my head reflexively. "No, absolutely not. Please come inside. Is something wrong? Where's Michael?" He stepped across the threshold, bringing with him a subtle scent of rainfall and cologne. It enveloped me like a half-remembered dream. "Flight complications," he explained, closing the door behind him. "Michael's stranded in Chicago overnight. I managed an alternate connection home." He hesitated, appearing somewhat uncomfortable. "He has documents he requested I deliver to you. He mentioned you're managing paperwork for your mortgage refinancing." "Oh," I responded, feeling warmth rise in my cheeks. "Yes, those forms. Come in. I'll clear some space." He followed me toward the dining area, his footsteps measured and quiet. I suddenly became acutely conscious of the half-eaten meal on the table, the open wine bottle, and the single glass. "Sorry for the disarray," I said, quickly gathering my plate. "I wasn't anticipating company." He glanced around the room, then back at me with gentleness in his expression. "It's not disarray. It looks authentic." He smiled faintly. "That's valuable." I laughed somewhat too quickly, feeling my face flush. "Can I offer you something? Water, coffee, perhaps wine?" He paused only briefly. "Wine sounds pleasant, actually. Only if you're joining me." I moved to the kitchen counter and poured a second glass, my hand slightly less steady than I preferred. It felt unusual standing there with my husband's supervisor in our kitchen while my husband remained stranded elsewhere. Unusual, yet not inappropriate. Not yet. Documents and deeper conversations. We sat at the table, the refinancing documents positioned between us. Initially, conversation remained appropriate. Interest percentages, signature requirements, deadline dates. He clarified several sections Michael had highlighted, indicating specific lines with his pen tip. I observed his hands as he spoke. Steady, purposeful, confident. Hands that likely carried excessive responsibilities, excessive burdens. Eventually, the paperwork discussion concluded, yet he didn't rise to depart. Instead, he reclined in his chair, cradling his wine glass, and regarded me in a way that made me feel acknowledged. "How are you managing, Taylor?" he asked gently. Such a straightforward question, yet the manner in which he asked it, deliberately, as though he genuinely wanted to know, caught me unprepared. "I'm fine," I answered automatically, then corrected myself. I'm coping." His eyes remained fixed on my face. "Coping," he repeated. "That typically means struggling." I exhaled deeply and studied my hands, tracing my glass's edge with one fingertip. The room felt excessively quiet, the television in the background merely a distant murmur. "It's just everything," I finally admitted. "The house, our daughter leaving, Michael constantly traveling. Some days I feel like decoration, just present, unnoticed." I hadn't intended to voice that last part out loud, but it emerged raw and unfiltered. Sebastian didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss it. He didn't offer hollow reassurance. He simply watched me, truly watched me, and nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "My ex-wife expressed similar feelings before our divorce. She said she felt transparent, like I only noticed her when problems arose." I looked up, genuinely surprised. I'd never heard him discuss personal matters. At corporate dinners, he maintained professionalism, control, composure. "I wasn't aware you'd been divorced," I said. "It's not something I broadcast," he replied. He took another sip, his jaw tightening momentarily. "Yes, several years ago. We stopped communicating before we even recognized it was happening." Something in his voice, regret perhaps, or recognition. Thunder rolled closer outside. Rain began tapping against windows, then intensified, drumming steadily. Streetlights outside blurred into hazy orbs. We transitioned into a slower, more genuine conversation, not about spreadsheets or corporate objectives, but about nights spent isolated in hotel rooms, children who called less frequently than we hoped, bodies that no longer recovered from stress like they did decades earlier. We didn't flirt, not initially. We simply connected. I found myself sharing things I hadn't told Michael in years. How I missed being surprised by small gestures, a handwritten note, a single flower, or even just, "How are you truly?" How I sometimes stood before bathroom mirrors wondering when exactly my appearance had changed. When smile lines stopped representing joy and started representing time passing. Sebastian listened, genuinely listened. His eyes didn't drift to his phone, didn't glaze over. When I spoke, he leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, as though every word held significance. "You're still beautiful, you realize," he said quietly at one point, almost as though speaking to himself. My heart stumbled. "Sebastian, I'm sorry," he said quickly, but his gaze didn't waver. "I shouldn't have said that. It's simply true. And I sense you haven't heard it recently." My cheeks burned hot. He was correct, and we both recognized it. I stood abruptly, needing space to breathe. "I should refill our glasses," I said, though they remained barely half empty. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter edge and closed my eyes. I could feel my pulse in my throat. "This is inappropriate," I told myself. "He's your husband's supervisor, your husband's colleague. You shouldn't feel this flutter in your chest simply because he called you beautiful." Yet I did. I poured slightly more wine, took a quick sip directly from my glass, and forced myself to return. As I sat down, the lights flickered. We both looked upward. Moments later, everything went dark. The television died. The refrigerator hummed to silence. The overhead light vanished. The only illumination came from the window, where occasional lightning flashes lit the room in cold, white bursts. "Well," I said, a small laugh escaping me, "that's theatrical." He chuckled softly. "Perfect atmosphere for a confession, wouldn't you say?" The word confession suspended between us like something fragile yet hazardous. Candlelight and confessions. "I think I have candles," I said. "Let me locate them." I walked to the hallway closet, fingers exploring blindly along shelves until they found familiar smooth glass jar shapes. I carried them back, darkness wrapping around us like a cocoon. With a lighter's click, one by one, soft golden flames bloomed to life on the table. The room transformed. What had been an ordinary dining room moments ago now resembled a scene from memory, warm, intimate, almost secretive. Shadows danced gently on walls. Sebastian's face softened in the candlelight, sharp features replaced with quiet warmth. "That's improved," I said, my voice lower now, as if the candles demanded it. He watched me as I sat down, his eyes following every movement. "You look—" He stopped himself, then smiled. "You look different in this light. Softer, younger." I rolled my eyes lightly, trying to break the tension before it consumed us entirely. "Flattery won't earn you another glass of wine." "It was an observation, not flattery," he replied gently. "You deserve to be acknowledged." The words were simple, yet the way he spoke them made something within me crack. I looked away, pretending to adjust a candle. "Sebastian, this feels peculiar." He said immediately, "And I don't want to make you uncomfortable. If you want me to leave, say so, and I'm gone." That mattered. The fact that he acknowledged the boundary, that he offered me the choice, made me trust him more rather than less. "No, I don't need to leave. I just don't know what to do with this." "With what?" he asked, his voice barely above the steady rainfall pattern. I swallowed. "With the fact that it's been extensive time since I felt like someone was genuinely observing me, hearing me, not simply checking me off a task list." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached out very carefully,
and rested his hand on the table, palm upward, not touching me, just near. He said, "I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here because I respect your husband. And somewhere along the way, I realized I respect you too, as a person, as a woman who deserves more than feeling like furniture." The honesty in his voice affected me more than any flirtation could have. My hand moved before my mind caught up. My fingers trembled slightly as they slid across the table, stopping just before his. For a moment, we hovered there, almost touching, not quite. The space between our hands felt like its own living entity. I looked up and met his eyes. They weren't hungry or demanding. They were searching, careful, full of something I hadn't felt directed at me in such extensive time. Tenderness. Slowly, I let my hand rest in his. The contact was gentle, warm, not aggressive, not possessive, just present. An ocean roared in my ears. The rain outside intensified, thunder rolling like a distant percussion. The candles flickered, casting private little shadows around us. "Taylor," he said softly. My name sounded unfamiliar from his lips, yet somehow exactly right. "We're standing at the edge of something that could alter everything. I don't want you to regret anything that occurs tonight." I took a shaky breath. I already regret so many things that didn't occur. The words I didn't speak, the emotions I suppressed, the years I spent waiting for someone else to notice I was drowning. His thumb brushed over the back of my hand in a slow, comforting motion. "You're not drowning now. You're right here." I felt my eyes sting. One tear escaped before I could contain it, sliding down my cheek. Embarrassed, I turned my head slightly, but he noticed. Without overthinking it, Sebastian stood and walked around to my side of the table. He moved slowly, giving me time to stop him if I wanted. I didn't. He pulled a chair closer, sitting beside me instead of across from me. In the soft candlelight, he reached out and gently, carefully brushed that single tear away with his knuckles back. "You're not behind your husband," he said quietly. "This is about you, about what you need, even if that's just being held, being understood for one night." Those words cut straight through every defensive layer I had carefully constructed over the years. I turned my face toward him, and for an extended moment, we simply looked at each other. Two adults, not in their 20s anymore, who understood what it meant to lose things, to lose time, opportunities, parts of ourselves. His hand remained resting on my cheek, warm and steady. "Sebastian," I whispered, my voice trembling, "if we cross this boundary, we can't reverse it." He said, "I know, but there's another boundary too, Taylor. The boundary where you keep pretending you don't need anything, where you keep disappearing inside your own existence. You've crossed that boundary so many times already, and it's been hurting you quietly for years." Silence filled the room again, soft, yet heavy. I closed my eyes briefly, feeling the weight of his words settle in my chest. When I opened them again, he was still there, still waiting, not pushing, just present. And that, more than anything, was what solidified my decision. The edge of something unforgettable. I leaned in just a little bit, so close I could feel his breath, feel the warmth between us. Our foreheads brushed, a fragile, hesitant touch that felt more intimate than anything else we could have done. In that moment, right there, on the edge of something that could break my life open in ways I didn't yet understand, I realized that the unexpected thing that had already occurred wasn't his visit. It was the way I felt alive again. What happened next? That's the part I'm not sure you're prepared to hear yet. But if you are, if you genuinely want to know how far we went that night and what it cost me afterward, then stay with me, because that was only the beginning.
I let out a shaky breath. I know. I need to understand what I'm experiencing. I haven't felt this kind of warmth and so extensive. He nodded, leaning back slightly to give me space, his hand still resting near mine, close enough to feel, but not enough to overwhelm. "Then talk to me," he said. "Tell me what's happening inside your mind right now." I stared down at our hands, mine trembling, his steady, and tried to find the words. It's like part of me is awakening, a part I didn't realize had fallen asleep. I've spent years pretending I was fine, that everything was acceptable, that my marriage was just experiencing a phase. But I felt invisible, Sebastian. Not unloved necessarily, just unnoticed. And when you walked through that door tonight, it was like someone activated the lights back inside me. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he reached over and gently touched the back of my hand again, not pulling, not gripping, just grounding me. "You deserve to be seen," he said, "by your husband, by the world, by yourself." Those words settled deep inside me like warm water filling a cold place. I didn't let go of his hand this time. We sat quietly for several moments, listening to the rain shift from heavy to soft, like the storm outside was beginning to settle, just as my own thoughts were. When I finally raised my eyes again, he was still watching me, not with desire, not with judgment, but with sincerity. "You know," he said slowly, "when I first met you at that holiday dinner, I thought to myself, she's the kind of woman who feels everything deeply. I can see it in her eyes. But you looked exhausted, like someone who was carrying more than she ever said aloud." I swallowed hard. I didn't know I was that transparent. He gave a soft smile. "Only to someone who recognizes it. I used to carry that same expression." Something warm spread through my chest. For the first time in years, someone understood me without needing everything explained. I had spent so extensive holding myself together that I forgot what it felt like to let someone see me crumble just slightly. The storm outside tapered into a gentle drizzle, and the house grew even quieter. Soft candlelight floated between us, casting golden shadows on the walls. Then Sebastian shifted, almost hesitant. He said, "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "When was the last time you felt cherished?" The word lingered in the air, painful and beautiful simultaneously. I blinked, my throat tightening as memories surfaced. Birthdays overlooked, anniversaries rushed, evenings spent eating dinner on opposite sides of the room while our phones filled the silence. "It's been extensive time," I whispered. "More extensive than I like to acknowledge." Sebastian's expression changed. Not anger, never that, but something protective. "You shouldn't have to starve for affection in your own life. You're too generous of a soul for that." The compliment caught me off guard, making heat rise up my neck. I tried to look away, but he gently touched my chin, turning my face toward his, not forcefully, just softly, letting me choose whether to pull away or stay. I didn't pull away. "Taylor," he said, voice low, "you don't have to hide your loneliness. Not from me." Something broke inside me then,
Not in a painful way, more like a release, like the moment you finally exhale after holding your breath for too long. Without thinking, I leaned forward, resting my head lightly against his shoulder. His breath hitched, surprised, but after a moment, he tilted slightly toward me, letting the closeness settle naturally. His hand brushed my arm gently once, as if to ask, "Is this acceptable?" And I let myself relax into him. We stayed like that, two adults well past the age of pretending their hearts were made of stone, sharing a quiet moment that felt heavier than words. His warmth seeped through my cardigan, grounding me in a way I hadn't felt in years. Eventually, I spoke, still leaning against him. "What are we doing, Sebastian?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he let his hand rest lightly on my forearm, his thumb brushing slowly back and forth. "We're being honest," he said finally, perhaps for the first time in extensive time, with ourselves, with each other. Honesty. Such a simple thing, and yet the most dangerous thing between two people who shouldn't feel what they feel. I lifted my head and looked at him, our faces close again in the flickering candlelight. He touched my cheek gently, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. The tender gesture made my heart flutter with an intensity I hadn't expected. "Taylor," he said whispered, "tell me what you want." I felt the question settle into every part of me. It wasn't seductive. It wasn't manipulative. He wasn't asking for permission to cross a boundary. He was asking about me, my desires, my needs, my truth, what I wanted. I let my fingers rest against his wrist, feeling his pulse under my touch. I want to feel something genuine again, something that reminds me I'm still alive. He closed his eyes for a moment, exhaling through his nose like he was steadying himself. When he opened them again, they were full of something warm and unguarded. "You are alive," he said, his voice trembling just slightly. "I only wish you could see it too." His words were a balm and a burden simultaneously. I leaned closer, our faces inches apart in the flickering candlelight. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. For a moment, I felt 19 again, nervous, trembling, curious, but wiser, more aware of the weight of every choice. "We can't pretend this doesn't mean something," I said. "I'm not pretending," he replied. "Are you?" "No," I breathed. "Not anymore." The fragile moment. We didn't close the distance between us. Not yet. Instead, we hovered there, suspended in a fragile moment where anything could happen, but nothing had to. He brushed his thumb across my lower lip so softly it barely counted his touch. My breath caught. In another life, perhaps this would be simpler. In another life, perhaps we would have met first. A small, sad smile touched his mouth. Perhaps. The candles flickered again, as if to remind us that time was still moving, that the night wouldn't last forever. I pulled back slightly, not breaking the connection entirely, but grounding myself enough to think clearly. "Sebastian," I said, softly, "I don't want this to be something I regret." "Then don't regret it. Not everything meaningful has to fit inside a perfect container. Sometimes two people cross paths at the wrong time, but still transform each other in the right way." I closed my eyes, letting his words sink into the deepest parts of me. When I opened them again, he looked at me with a tenderness that felt like a confession all its own. "What happens now?" I whispered. He took my hand again, lifting it to his chest so I could feel the rhythm of his heart. Steady, genuine, human. "Now," he said softly, "now we let the truth remain between us. Whatever this night becomes, we carry it with respect, with care, with the understanding that it didn't emerge from impulse, but from two people who were exhausted from being lonely." My breath trembled as I nodded slowly, and then something shifted between us. Not physical, not reckless, but emotional, deep, raw, undeniable. He leaned his forehead against mine again, closing his eyes. "You're not invisible. Not tonight. Not ever." The storm finally faded into silence outside, and the house felt still in a way that made every breath louder, every heartbeat clearer. We stayed close, lingering in the warmth of what we had just admitted to each other. Two grown adults tangled in a moment of tenderness neither of us had expected when the night began. We didn't cross the final boundary that